Funding for this program is provided by Annenberg CPB to advance excellent teaching.
When you're beginning a project, you should always keep in mind that you have a group of children who are very eager to learn and that they don't know the answers and you don't have to know the answers, that you can discover together and you can create together.
One of the very important things in the management discussion is being able to hold up the kids' ideas to them so they can see them and reflect on them. And you're helping to structure the discussion in that way, even though it's very much them exchanging their ideas.
We get to know each other, we talk about family.
I have to learn about them.
What are their responsibilities to their communities?
All the kids are really good if you just sit down and listen.
I rephrase the question. Maybe the question was wrong.
So that they have an awareness, an education, and a tolerance for other cultures.
You improvise every step of the way.
I know what a certain child's best is, and I expect that.
It makes me feel really happy to be a teacher. I'm kind of choked up.
We humans are essentially social creatures. We laugh, we play, and we learn with and from each other. Schools can take advantage of the fact that students learn from each other as well as their teachers, but what kind of guidance must a teacher provide to ensure that this learning is productive? I'm Linda Darling Hammond, and that's our challenge for this session of the Learning Classroom. Lev Vygotsky, a psychologist and school teacher, expanded on Piaget's ideas to include the notion that learning is basically social and that both the teacher and the peers can assist in the learning process.
All human development is social, beginning from probably even before birth and all the way to the end of our lives. We continue always to develop. Our individual capacities develop first as something that happens between people. And of course, for students, the most important social transaction is what happens between a teacher and a student. So what happens, the social process, the interactive process, the processes of assistance, the processes of conversation that happen between teacher and student, that is what forms the mind and the capacity of those students.
Yvonne Scott has built a community of learners among her fifth graders at the San Francisco Community School. We visited her and her students over a period of several weeks, during which they researched, designed, and constructed a butterfly garden. Notice how Yvonne guides her students through modeling, coaching, and providing feedback, and by creating a social system in which students assist one another while she assists them.
We're doing a butterfly garden this semester. The school has written a grant so that we can have an outdoor learning environment, and there are parts of it, there are different sections of it. There's a climbing area, there's a garden area, which we started already with the garden, 2 small patches. And so one of the things we wanted in there was a butterfly garden.
I can't believe this.
What?
I saw a roly-poly.
Where?
Over there.
Okay, I'm gonna come over there. Is that where everybody is?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Where's the roly-poly? There. It turned over. Come on. Don't leave it alone. Leave it alone. Don't hurt it. Remember what Molly said? That's Calixto. Hey, let me see. You lost it. No, I didn't. Come on. And where is it? Right there. You just can't see it. There. Just look at it. Look at it.
The students posed questions that they had about butterflies. That's how we approached it. You know, what do you know about butterflies? What do you want to know about butterflies? And instead of writing down what they already knew about butterflies, I wrote down what their questions were, or if they had any I wonder or I think, because I felt that when you ask them what they know, sometimes what they know is true, but sometimes what they know is not true. So we just set out just trying to find out the answers to the questions that we already had. And we made a very long list of those, and we started out trying to learn about them. This is no longer going to be just a class at San Francisco Community School. We have a challenge. And what is our challenge in this class? Show?
To make a butterfly garden.
To make a butterfly garden. So one of our homework assignments tonight is going to be able to come up with a company name, something that we're going to be running our company, and in this classroom is going to be run like a business. In the beginning of the project, they chose what part they wanted. They wanted to be on the research department, and they had then they had a garden department. So they did all the planning. On each stage of the plan, they brought it back to the classes and asked them their opinion and wrote down their suggestions and asked them for drawings if they needed them, and then they sorted through them, and then they came back with their final plan.
My team was just a layout team. David, Oscar, Bianca, and I, we need to get the final blueprints done of the garden so we know where to plant things.
When you're beginning a project, you should always keep in mind that you have a group of children who are very eager to learn, and that they don't know the answers, and you don't have to know the answers. That you can discover together, and you can create together. And that you have a range of abilities, and you have a range of people who like different things. In other words, some of them are very artistic and they love to do things. They want to do it artistically all the time. Other people want to learn from just the books. But if you take into account all these different ways, and you, in the beginning, try to find out who likes what, who learns which way, and then you give them a challenge to teach each other, to bring the rest of the group up to where they are in this particular field, then that will help them.
Another concept people are dealing with is so-called the integrated curriculum, which is really a new term for Dewey's old project method, which means that you teach things in an integrated way, that instead of teaching science and art and music and so on, you try to bring those together. So you try to teach, if you're trying to teach zoology, for example, you might also teach art, so the kids would draw birds, for example, and you might do math, you might do the size of different birds and so on and measure them. So that would be another approach, which is to try to tie different disciplines in together, and so that you're not teaching them in separate domains, but all together.
What we want from the projects is for them to understand what they need to learn, what math, what social studies, what science, what reading, that they need to learn to make a challenge work. And when they start to really study something in depth, where they can have hands-on, where they can do art, where they can do science, and they can do all kind of investigation, and makes it real. What do you think you would see coming out for the nectar?
The proboscis.
Proboscis, yes. Okay, that would come out, and it would uncurl, and they would start to try to see if you're a flower, right?
Yeah, but
What? Can we come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
But inside the movie we saw, it said that some butterflies like the sweat of humans.
Right, the sweat, they do, and they want to drink that. So that's another reason they would come to you.
Because it's water. The water, your sweat is water.
Exactly.
But hot, but still water.
Yes, and we talked about that. Now, when we go into the butterfly habitat, it's going to be hot and steamy. And what about that other word, camouflage? Tell me about that.
Camouflaging next to the plants or flowers.
Camouflaging. So we're going to need to look very carefully. Okay, who can tell me what it is when a butterfly tries to look like another butterfly? Say, for instance, we know that the monarchs are poisonous, and there's some other butterflies that try to look like it. David? Mimicking, that's right, mimicking. Yesterday's field trip, we had a butterfly walk. Comments? What you learned? What you thought? Jonah?
Before that, I thought butterfly eggs were really rare and you wouldn't find them. Like maybe if you looked through maybe 1,000 plants, you'd find one. And actually, we only looked through maybe 100 plants and we found like, I don't know, 10. And so I had no idea that butterfly eggs were that common.
If it wasn't for this project, I wouldn't know that those little things were eggs. I'd probably think it was like something, I don't know. But my dad said that when I start collecting all my allowance, he said that I could raise a butterfly because I could get like a big container or something.
We learned about butterflies in a lot of different ways. We did the research. We have lots of books around here about butterflies. I encourage them to find books at home and in the library, and then also we just started to observe. And we observed in the garden, and we figured out what was going to actually attract butterflies.
No, they're what the caterpillar eats, and so they're what the female adult butterfly lays her eggs on, so the caterpillar can eat it.
So what plants would those be?
Well, there are lots of different host plants.
Which ones did we see?
Fennel. Well, yeah, there was fennel, milkweed,
dill,
and cabbage, and lots of other ones.
So we could put that on the mural too, right?
Yes.
And we've been keeping a journal, an observation journal on how things have been progressing. What else do we have to do?
First you have to write it down, and then it has to look like it's typed already, and then you have to check it again just in case there's any mistakes.
Okay, so we have the mural, and we have the report, and we have the questions that we have to answer. What else do we need to do? We're making reports not in the traditional way, but we're making them as plaques to go out in the garden, so that there'll be information for the our K through 8th grade students to learn about what we've already learned. And each of the reports has a picture, a brightly colored picture of a butterfly, and the information, the name of the butterfly, the wingspan, and special features, and then any other interesting facts that they've learned about it. We want our information to go out into the garden, and we want it accessible for all of our students. During the course of this 10 weeks, I've seen the culture change quite a bit. They've all worked together, and the tables have all been mixed, and so they've been working together to get their projects done, and they've emerged experts in different things. There's a couple of people who have been helping everybody on the computer, and some people who have been helping them to help with the wording on their reports and the art projects, and so they've been collaborating, and different people have taken the lead and everything. And so I see the class coming together.
We need scissors, big ones.
Yvonne provides just the right mix of whole class leadership, individual and group coaching, and independent learning. Student learning depends to a great extent on the opportunities kids have to talk about what they're thinking. Teachers can deliberately support these skills through managed dialogue.
The basic structure of assistance is best supported through dialogue. Dialogue with a purpose. And managed dialogue means several things. It means dialogue that is managed for an academic purpose, for providing intellectual, cognitive, social, and emotional growth. But it also means real dialogue, and that means that what one participant says has something to do with what just happened the minute before, so that there is a real exchange. And during that kind of exchange, the teacher is able to hear in this dialogue on the subject at hand what it is the student can say, can do, and what it needs to say next and to do, and can provide the kinds of responses and questions that will provide the assistance in the zone of proximal development. So dialogue, whether it's ad hoc, whether it is small group, whether it is large group, becomes a necessity in classrooms both for assessment and for assistance.
Urban Academy teacher Avram Barlow has created a discussion-based classroom. Let's take a look at how he helps his students move beyond off-the-cuff opinions toward deeper understanding and the use of evidence through Socratic dialogue in which he manages the discourse.
The way that we were opening up a look at Reconstruction is we were looking, the kids had read through a series of laws that were passed by Southern state legislatures shortly after the end of the Civil War, called the Black Codes, which, in which for the former Confederates who then controlled Southern state governments were sort of attempting to reassert control over the black population of the South. But what I asked them to do was to look at that material and to actually look at the text of these laws and read through some of them and decide for themselves what they thought the laws were designed to do, why they thought they were created, what the people who would have defended those laws would have felt about, how they would have been defended by the people who wrote them. And you saw in the class there were multiple interpretations of that. Do people agree with Stephanie that this is trying to keep black people in check, and that it is almost a form of slavery? Matt, you have a comment on this?
In a way, I think it is, because it's saying, okay, you're free, but you can't do this, this, and that. But I think it's just, overall, it's keeping, it's not a great way to live, but it's better than the way that slaves were living.
Okay, Michelle.
I think that this stuff was made to keep them in check, and that they were like scared after like the slavery and all that was going on, that maybe the black people would rise up and go against all the white people, and try to get revenge back for what they did to them and their ancestors and all that. And yeah, the white people were scared, but they did a lot to these black people.
Jose. The culture of the classroom is many things, but one of the important things it is an attitude towards what the learning process in the classroom is, and attitudes that the kids have and that the teacher has. And that if you feel like the discussion has a value, if you feel that your voice and what you think and your interpretation of the material is important and is being developed in that discussion, if you're learning something by putting out your ideas, hearing them responded to, being forced to defend them, or if you're sitting and listening to two people who have different ideas and you're trying to make up your mind what 2 people or 4 people or 6 other people are saying, that if you think it has value to you, there's a level of respect you're going to bring to the exchange that's going to be very high. So that there's a list, for example, in the discussion. People are raising their hands all the time to speak. I'm trying to keep a list. So I'm trying to keep track of the ideas and the comments. What is so bad about that? What is so bad about saying, you're a former slave, you've never owned land before, you're going to own land for the first time, we're not going to let you just own land and rent it off any place in the world. You have to do it in the city where there's some structure, where there's an authority. Why is that so bad? Okay, Matt, and then Stephanie.
What I don't understand is why. Why would they? Does it help white people, or does it help the government to put these restrictions that like make these free black men like live a hard life or whatever? Is there a need? Does it help anybody?
It's a good question. Why? Which is really the question in the homework. Why do you think they passed these laws? Why you don't see that it necessarily helps anybody from your point of view? Is that okay? Steph, does anyone? Yes, Stephanie, and then Joanna. Okay, go ahead. Why did they pass these laws? Go ahead.
I think just to have restrictions, just to so they could have control over them. They know, like in the big cities, they know what they're doing with it, and they wanted to like see what they are. They didn't want them to have total freedom, even though they're not slaves. You have 10 million laws that that make us have control over you still. If you do this, you go to jail. If you do that, there's always, things that happen afterwards. So I think that's why, just have more control over them. They didn't want them to, they didn't believe they were equal.
Does that make sense to you, Matt? I mean, she's saying it was just because they did not want to give up control of these people. They didn't believe they were equal, and they wanted to keep control, and this was the way to do it.
Slaves.
Well, you can't keep it right. You can't. One of the very important things in the management discussion is being able to hold up the kids' ideas to them so they can see them and reflect on them, and being able to sort of tease out what the disagreements are and what the questions are that are percolating in their discussion so that they can really maintain a focus in it. So sometimes you will raise a question, there'll be disagreement or exchange on that question, and some of the comments and some of the disagreements will really be begging another question. It's very important in that setting to say, it seems to me that what Matt and Stephanie are arguing about is also this question, and then you state that question so that the kids can hear it, so that you're constantly holding up their ideas to them in a way that they can look at them and think about them, so that the discussion is not, and you're helping to structure the discussion in that way, even though it's very much them exchanging their ideas.
The social interactions in a classroom, if everybody gets to participate and everybody feels belonging, feels that they have something to contribute, motivates the desire to learn more and to learn everything, anything that's brought out in the classroom is something that the child will want to learn, in part because what happens in a good social climate is that the child makes an emotional attachment to the adult leader and also an emotional attachment to the other children.
When you give somebody a contract to pay them and to give them money, or to go out and starve and live in the forest or wherever it is that they had down south, what are you gonna choose? Starve and die with your family, or you're still doing slavery, but at least you're getting like $1 for what you're doing. You know, I think they didn't have much of a choice. They had to choose a contract, even if it abused them and it didn't pay them enough and it didn't really help them at all.
No, there was no such thing. There was no minimum wage laws in this country at this time.
So when they signed the contract, when Michelle said they had to, I mean, they had no other choice. They'd rather work. They haven't worked. I mean, they wanted to make any kind of money. They were forced into this kind of environment where I can't quit. I can't go anywhere else. I have to abide by these rules. I can't ask for anything more, you know? So basically, they probably got paid nothing or close to nothing. And they they couldn't do anything. I mean, the white people had all the control. They had everything they wanted.
Okay.
Even though they weren't slaves.
Rachel.
Yes,
question.
If you complained or asked for more, they would also punish you for that too, right?
Well, let's look at what the law says. It says here, now, there may be times when they raise a question which is not one of the questions that I thought would be a critical question to look at in terms of the material, but that question does a very good job of mining the material and where they really work with the evidence that they've been given. And they raise a wholly new question that I hadn't anticipated. If I feel they're working with the material using that question, my job is to go with that question and really give it structure and hold up the responses in the same way they would with the questions that I've come up with. I have that flexibility. It's not but it's not just them talking about whatever they want to talk about. Even when they generate a new question, their own question, I have to feel that it's something that connects to the material in some ways for it to be, and is forcing them to work with the material and develop their ideas.
What did you expect the people to do? They don't want them free in the first place, so of course they're going to make up all these kind of laws and stuff like that. Nobody's dismissing anything. I'm asking, what did you really expect? Well, they're going to do their best to try to hold them down, and that's exactly what they're doing with these laws.
Okay, let me take Jules, and then let me take that disagreement and get to the third question, which is what about the people who passed these laws? What do you expect from these people, but what should have been done with the people who passed these laws? One of the things that may happen is sometimes a conversation is very interesting, and there are a lot of kids want to speak at once because an issue seems so vibrant on the floor that everybody's talking. You have to get in there and say, look, hold it. We have to stick to the list here. On the other hand, there may be times when a kid says something and another kid wants to respond to it immediately, and they're supposed to wait, but you sort of feel like the dialogue between the two kids has to happen. You have to be able to let that, to sort of cast out the line a little bit and then reel it back in so that not everybody's jumping in.
The whole part of the war was to keep the Union together. You know, you can't have a country together when you're pushing away half of it. You know.
No, he means the white.
No, I'm talking about
the southern white people.
But the white people weren't important like the white people were. You know, it's a sad thing to say, but it's true. You know, you had to keep the Union together. You had to have the Congress and senators from the other states. You had to have representatives, and even if they did not agree with what you wanted or what you wanted for the country or whatever, you still had to have it, or else there would be no union. You know, what's the point? What's the point of having a war over keeping them together if you're going to push them out after it is over?
But if you keep those people in power, you give them a chance to decide.
1903. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I'm saying if you keep those same people in power, the same people that started the first secession, then you give them another chance to be in a place where they can start another war. Why would you do that?
All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give. Let me just say. Lincoln, when before the war was over, we have 1 minute here, so I need everyone's attention because this explains the homework, right? Before the war was over, Lincoln came up with a plan that was very similar to Michelle's philosophy, saying, look, these people rebelled against us, but we need to bring the Union back together. We need to sort of bring those leaders, some of those leaders back in. We can't be that tough on the people in the Confederacy because the country will split apart. Well, I mean, I think it works very differently for different kids. I think one of the real strengths of this, of what we're doing methodologically with a diverse group of kids, is we're allowing kids to see that I can put out an idea and defend an idea in this classroom, even though I don't necessarily feel like I read as well as this kid or as much as this kid, or I write as well or as I score as high on a test, because here's an issue that's being posed here. I'm looking at something that I'm reading. I think I understand what it means. And gee, I have an opinion about this that's based in my experience. And I can sort of test my mettle here. And I think that's a very empowering experience for kids. Very important. The whole process, I think, is empowering to different kinds of kids, sensitizing to other kids. You know, I think that really everybody in there can see that that on any given day, somebody can say something that makes you think about something in a way that you haven't thought about it before. And it doesn't matter who that kid is in the classroom, and that's good for every kid in that classroom.
There are several principles involved in creating classroom communities that take maximum advantage of how people learn. The first principle is that students learn more when teachers and students work together on a task. The second principle is that language development is central across the curriculum. Regardless of the subject matter, developing competence in the language of instruction is fundamental for effective learning. Third, choosing tasks that are meaningful to students accelerates learning enormously. Fourth, we find that good learning occurs most often in intellectually challenging activities that teach complex thinking. And finally, the instructional conversation, that is, dialogue with a specific academic goal, is at the heart of the effective classroom. Yvonne Scott and Avram Barlow have both created community-centered classrooms that are carefully organized to support social learning. They create opportunities for dialogue and collaboration that push students to think more clearly and to produce high-quality work. In doing so, these teachers give their students the skills for both academic success and success in the human community. This is the Learning Classroom. Thanks for watching.
Funding for this program is provided by Annenberg CPB to advance excellent teaching.